Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're talking about where to start. In particular, the month of June. It's 3 lakes that you guys have sent in. One of them was personal this past week. Over there at Heavy Hitters, I had a young man, that said, please do Bugs Island. So we're gonna do Bugs Island. We're going to break down a lake. We're gonna keep the bug theme going. Do Mosquito Lake, another individual sent that in. And then we are going to do a lake in Kansas. So kind of another challenging lake, a unique lake, the one in Kansas. But it's just a video series, guys. If you're new to the channel, I really try to break down 3 or 4 areas where to start. Just try to help you. That's something that I've done for a living over the last 25 years is travel the country, go to lakes, try to figure out how to catch them to pay my bills, So for me, I got a lot of pressure on myself when I go to do this stuff because I compete, and like next week I'm going to Kentucky Lake. Hadn't been there in probably 6-7 years, and I've got to go break that lake down and figure out a place where to start. And we do it in this video series. And the neat thing about this video series is, like with a lot of things in our channel, we try to give back to you guys. And Optima Batteries has sponsored this. So we just go through there and we randomly pick a winner, and you get a free battery. What the heck? An AGM blue top battery or a yellow top for your car. You guys get to pick it. We'll send you a certificate. But at the end of this video, we will pick last month's winner. So all I ask from you guys in return, man, smash that like button. But all right, let's get into it. Let's start with Bugs Island, also known as Kerr Reservoir. And I just got to say, I've never been. I've drove across this lake a bunch, and I'm wondering why we have never been there. Somebody, I would love for you all to leave some comments. Why have we never had a big national tournament on this monstrous body of water? It's on the Virginia, the Virginia-Carolina border, and it's big, like really, really, really big. Looks like the Roanoke River comes into it. You got another river that comes into it from the south. Big body of water, and it looks muddy. It looks like spinnerbait heaven for me when I drive across it. And looking as I've studied it here, and I've studied it here for probably a good 30 minutes, it's not always muddy. Like there's a lot of clean water sections on this thing. And as I say that, I wonder if I'm getting that confused with Gadsden. I think that's another lake y'all have in that area. Gaston, that's the one right below it. Maybe that one's always muddy. I don't know. One of the big highways that I travel, I have to cross one of these lakes all the time, but I've never been to either one of them, and I'm wondering why I never have. The thing with Kerr, the little bit that I know, I feel like the water, fluctuates quite a bit there, and I feel like there's times that you've got to be able to catch them flipping bushes. So I want to show some areas where to start if the water's high. And I think water high there, doing a little bit of research, 303, 304, 305, I think you've got some water in some bushes. So when I go to a lake and I want to, flip bushes, what do I look for in June? Because it's different than February and March. Like then I'm looking at bushes that lead into spawning pockets. I'm looking for protected water. In June, my best, most favorite bushes are always going to be areas that are out towards the main lake. And let's just like right here on this video, right here, I put this place marker on this. And why did I pick those bushes right there? And granted, I don't know your water levels, but take this to your body of water or take it to another section of the lake. I chose this because when the water's high, they're always drawing water down. Look how this thing makes a U. There is going to be a lot of water pulling through those bushes. To me, it's just a natural point for fish to pull up to, let the current bring the shad to them, the bait fish to them. Like to me, that's, man, prime bush flipping. Like I really like main lake corners, main lake stuff that those bushes can get, that the current's coming through that brings shad to it. Another spot. So this is that river that flows to the south. There was a photo here that water was over this peninsula right there. Look at that. Water is going to flow through that. It's not a lot of current, but it's enough to concentrate fish there day in, day out, day in, day out. Like I like that stuff. The other things that I look for when I'm trying to find stretches of bushes is deeper water close by. And you do that by, looking at your sea map, and you go to those areas that you have those bushes. So if I was to go to that spot right there, that's right there, anywhere those contour lines are tighter. You know, those contour lines are really tight on this side. So I do have deeper water close by to that location right there. That other location up there, not quite as tight, pretty distant, but they're tight on that side. So it's got deep water close by, but you always just want to keep that. And then the other thing that I look for is a harder bottom a lot of times, and especially in the spring, but I don't want it to be on a muck bottom. I like a harder bottom, and you just determine that by sticking your rod over the side and just feeling what the bottom looks like. Anytime you catch a fish up there flipping the bushes, see if it's sand, see if it's rock, see if it's clay, and you just do that by sticking your rod over the side. And then the other thing to think about, like if the water's high, or let's say it's marginally high, you can generally always find your deeper bushes are further up the bodies of reservoir. And that's just because everything is steeper towards the dam and everything's flatter the further away from the dam you get. So the further you come up this Roanoke River, the deeper those bushes are going to get. You can just see everything's flat up there. You know, you'll have to come up there to find deeper bushes on the lower end of when the water's in the bushes. So if you're like me and you like throwing a spinnerbait, you like throwing a frog, swimming a jig, you can extend that bush bite, that flooded willow tree, that buckbrush bite on up the lake. Those bushes up there are always going to be inches to a foot deeper than anything on the lower end of the body of water. And also it's going to be generally more stained water, which also is conducive to that pattern. Okay, so there's a couple places to start with the bushes and things to think about. The other thing to think about, you know, I think all these lakes over on the East Coast now are all getting herring in them. And you know, that herring bite is so much fun. Like, you know, I just left Smith Mountain Lake right there in Virginia, and I was catching them on a spinnerbait, a herring-colored spinnerbait, a Berkeley Power Blade, just burning it across those flat points. And flat points is the key to those herring spawns. So I marked a couple spots right here. Let's just see what I marked. I think this one right here, when I look for herring stuff, I look for flatter points that stick out. You can see right there, that's a flat point. You know, it's actually got a little saddle right there, and it's out there. You know, it's flatter. Like that's a spot those herring will spawn. There's nothing wrong with that point. You know, a big key to fishing herring stuff is to try to cover as much of it as you can. As I say that, you know, I look at this point, I like it because it's facing, you know, down current, you know, possibly facing into the wind. It's flat. It looks like that sand though. I'm not overly a big fan of sand. If that was clay, I'd really like it. A couple things that really stuck out to me on this lake for this herring stuff, we kind of used the whole current situation also, is these flat points up here. You're going to have current going through this stuff. You're going to have wind generating some current. I like these flat points. You got two rivers that come together. You know, this end is going to have the herring spawn later than, say, in May. Up the lakes, you know, this is your coldest water, your deepest portion of water to warm up, so it's going to extend that herring spawn down the lake. But man, all these flat points around this right here, these flat points here, that flat point right there, to me, those are all prime herring type spots to fish. If I was to go over here and look at my sea map, you can put a filter on there of everything less than 3 feet. I set it for 3 feet. So that island top right there that's got those red bars across it, I just go over here and hit this button right here. I go shallow area 3 feet. I can make it 4 feet, 5 feet, whatever it is, and that changes. So those herring spawning points a lot of times are some of your shallowest, flattest points. By putting that little red on there, you can sit here and study this, you know, before you ever go to the lake. And the ones that stick out further into that main lake, I think are going to be some of your best ones. So, you know, it doesn't look like there's any there. We've got them all up against the bank. So you can just scroll up through there. You can see there's not a lot of them. Bam, there's one right there. Extends out further than any. That could be a good one. And it's at the mouth of a spawning pocket. That's something that I always look for. It's just an easy meal for those fish to find. I marked this spot up the river. I'll show you here on my sea map first. And man, I love this stretch of this lake right here. When you look at it, I've got a big hard S-turn. I've got two big creeks that come in. I've got another big flat creek that's got lots of spawning habitat. I've got lots of flats on that outside river bend. That section of that lake looks dynamite to me. And if I was to zoom in, these corners right here, I don't care if I'm herring spawn fishing, if I'm bush fishing, if I'm offshore fishing and that water's not in the bushes, that inside point right there to me screams like, fish me, fish me, fish me. I've got these saddles between these islands. I've got these points between these islands. Like, look at how much water has to cut through there. Like, you know, that it's gonna cut through those cuts right there. This point facing into the current, that point facing into the current, dynamite. Like, to me, that is my #1 spot that I would go look at right now in the month of June on any lake. Anytime you have something that sticks out, you got current coming across it, it is a key spot to start. So like, I just love how this area looks. Just the outside bend, the flats, the points, the current, everything here. Like, I could spend a lot of time in that section of the lake in the month of June. A great place to start. You can't go wrong in that section. I promise you. I got a lot of confidence in that. I've seen it all across the country. So, all right. Bugs Island, Kerr Reservoir, whatever you want to call it, there is some areas to start for you guys in the month of June. And just let me remind you, man, smash that like button for me. Help my algorithm out on these videos. So, all right, let's move to the next lake. Let's go to Mosquito Lake. It's not a big lake, and they sprayed the grass. So that was from Neil Graham. So, man, Neil, I appreciate you following along on the channel. Appreciate you sending in the lake. I'm sorry that they sprayed your grass. That stinks. I would kind of break this lake down into 2 different sections. It looks like we have a bridge that goes across it. And to me, when you look at it on Google Earth, and like this upper end is off-colored, really shallow, really protected water. Then you've got this bridge, things get deeper. 2 separate lakes kind of in essence. You know, I did a little research. You've got smallmouth, you've got largemouth in the lake. I like this upper end because it has the most spawning habitat. I just feel like every bass, you know, it's got a lot of spawning habitat. And when you look at the sea map, you've got a couple roads that cross it that are really unique to me that man, I just feel like those fish are spawning right now up there. They're gonna stay around, they're gonna guard those beds, but then they're gonna get out on these roads, you know, and just use those as highways, travel up and down them. I wanna pull those up over here on Google Earth and just show you what I'm talking about. Here's a great photo. So you've got a great spawning bay all in here, really protected. But then I have this road that comes right down through here. I have this road that comes right down through here. So you say your grass has been taken away. Well, you have to go to the next best thing. You have to go to structure, man-made structure. Roads are that, you know, and there's going to be a depression through that road, a culvert in that road, you know, where this drainage system comes out and went underneath it. So, man, I'd get my boat on that thing. I'd fish out it, you know. I'd start with a topwater right up there close to the point of it, you know, and just maybe throw my hard head or a crankbait going down that thing, maybe a Carolina rig, go on down there to this intersection, and then you can follow that road out across this lake. You know, out here, like if you see here on my sea map, there's going to be a section out there that's going to be good. Like, I don't know how you cannot make some cast at this bridge. To me, that's just amazing how much current has to go through that bridge with that small of opening, with the kind of wind you guys have up there. Like, it's just the corners of that bridge, the riprap of that bridge would be a great place to start in the morning for a shad spawn. That's just such a big, prominent piece of structure that cuts right across that lake that has it all. Shallow, deep, current, wind, bait. Like, that bridge to me is just screams, man, fish there every day of the year. There's fish on it. Moving on down the lake, you've got a road bed that goes down this whole western shoreline. So there's going to be areas, like you can see it right here in the grass. There's going to be areas where that road crosses this ditch. It's going to be a high percentage area. There's going to be, you know, another big ditch that sticks out somewhere down through here that's going to have a culvert or something underneath it that's going to be a high percentage area. I would want to explore this quite a bit just because it's different. It's anytime you have man-made structure in a lake, it's just usually up above and beyond the natural stuff in there because it's so much more vertical or hard or different than just the natural stuff in the lake. So I always think man-made structure trumps everything else in a lake. So I would definitely have to look at that road. Here it crosses this road. You know, looking at my sea map, you know, as far as some offshore stuff in June, once they get done spawning, I've got a really good hump right there. I've got a really good offshore hump right there. I say those are good because the contour lines get really tight. I go from, you know, 22 feet to 13 feet. I go from 11 feet to 18 feet. You know, that doesn't sound like a lot for a guy on Table Rock, but, you know, here on this lake, that is a lot. You know, this whole break line down through here would have to be good for me, you know, smallmouth, largemouth, any of that stuff. I like it. I like this break line here where it turns, those inside points. There's just lots of stuff here on this southern end screams offshore fishing for me. Now, I have to think that these fish are going to spawn a week or two later than those northern end fish on this lake. And even though it's only I think a 6,000 acre lake, this big body of water down here is going to take a little bit longer to warm up, a little bit longer for those fish to get out offshore. But man, neat lake, cool lake. I think I'm sorry the grass, I can imagine it's got to be a phenomenal lake with having grass in it at one time, but those are some areas that I would try to focus on, you know, going into June without grass being in the lake. You know, fish are just going to get a little deeper. They're going to relate more to hardcover man-made structure, you know, any brush piles, any stumps, any of that kind of stuff that you have in that lake. So, all right, our final lake. Another like interesting, cool lake in my opinion. Way out in western Kansas, I had a guy by the name of Rod Cashman. Hey man, I need your help. I can't figure out how to catch bass in Cedar Bluff Lake in western Kansas. All right, so when I look at Cedar Bluff Lake out here in western Kansas, man, it's a lake that really runs due east and west. And man, my experience with the limited experience, let me just say that, with lakes like this, man, and I noticed right off the bat, the elevation of this lake's like 2,200 feet. So it's going to be behind everything else. You know, I feel like the fish are going to be spawning, you know, in May and just getting done. Probably still some of them spawning in June there, but, you know, just there's going to be a later spawn than what I would expect, you know, just being at a higher elevation. But what I was getting to, east to west, man, these lakes are so susceptible to wind and wind erosion, having like soft bottoms, you know, just erosion from rain. Like when you get rain, it's massive amounts of rain a lot of time. It doesn't come like a half inch at a time. It comes inches at a time, and lots of erosion happens. So in my mind, that wipes out the back half, or not the back half, but the back fourth of a lot of these bigger major creeks. I just feel like it's all silted in. So when I look at this creek here, I like the looks of it because, one, it runs north and south. It's really protected from that big, massive southwest, west winds that you have all summer long. I've got some steeper banks, so I've got protected from the wind, and I've got some steeper stuff towards the back. So in my mind, this is silted in, but when I get to the steeper stuff right here, that's not. That's going to be a harder bottom. So when I look at it over here on Google Earth, you can obviously tell this lake at one time was really low, or it's brand new, but I think it was really low because there is some major timber growing out in it, like major timber. So here's what I'm talking about on that soft bottom. You can just see like this is all really flat, really soft. Let's see if there's a different photo, a little bit lower. Wintertime photo, you know, this creek comes out, it's depositing lots of stuff. This bank over here is going to be steeper. To me, what I look for is like these little points that stick out right there. That's going to be a harder bottom. Why that thing is still a point is because it's rock, and you don't have a lot of that harder bottom. So to me, that's a really neat spot to start because, one, shad can spawn on that in June, bluegill are going to spawn on that. It's a harder bottom, bass are going to spawn on it. Like, it's just, to me, a high percentage deal. Looking at it, I think this lake's about 20 feet low right now. What really stood out to me when I looked at this was this right down here by the dam. I'm protected from a lot of the winds. It's really exposed to a north wind. But when you look at this right here, there must have been an old pond dam. So here it is right here. You can see this photo. You got an old pond dam, and we got a cut in it. So anytime that wind's blowing east to west, it does not have to blow north or south. But what happens, like I've seen so many bodies of water that down at the dam, it's like like when you slosh the water in in a bathtub. You know, your kid's in there and you're giving them a bath. My instance is my grandson, and man, you make this whirlpool effect. Man, that wind blows so hard all one direction, and it pushes water back into those little narrow areas. And it happens at Lake Texoma. I've talked about it in the lake breakdowns down there in Burns Run, and that creek that goes back up there, that water will just flush and push back in there, and then all of a sudden it turns around and it blows right back out. That's going to happen in this body of water right here, because, you know, you're going to have a lot of wind pushing down towards the dam, and then all of a sudden that wind's got to go back. Well, then it's going to be magnified when it goes through these cuts in this old pond dam. So, you know, I picked this as an area for those fish once they just got done spawning. You know, we've got a spawning pocket back in here. You know, you're gonna have a hard bottom right there on another pond dam. You know, if we put water on this, now there's water on top of that right there. They could be spawning right there. I feel like this photo right here is close to 20 feet low. But they could spawn in here, they could spawn on top of that, but then they can pull out right out here is that old pond dam. You know, and you're gonna come out there with a Carolina rig crankbait, whatever you wanna fish, and you can catch some offshore fish, you know, June type fishing on that old pond dam right there. So let me go back down. There's that photo right there that really showed it. Looks like you guys got grass in the lake, which, man, that's really, really cool. A couple other areas that stood out to me. Shad spawn, the face of the dam. It's the only riprap on that thing. In bodies of water like this, where it's the only riprap like it, man, I'd have to start my morning at some point or another on the face of that dam. I like it a lot. This stood out to me right here. Another protected pocket, spawning pocket, but man, as fish pull out, as fish, whatever they do, I've got a little point, I've got a little point right here that's got bigger rock on it. It's different than anything else in that whole pocket right there. You can just see there's bigger rock right there on that. That's gonna be somewhere around 5 to 10 feet deep, trying to figure out these water levels. I like that. That's a spot smallmouth would get. That's a spot largemouth would get. Neat pocket right here. I think the other thing that I would have to look at some point or another is fish suspended in this timber right here at the mouth of this pocket. Like, to me, get your active target out there, start shining that thing around through there, get your jerk bait on, get your spinner bait, big 1 ounce spinner bait, slow roll it through those trees. I think your arm might get broke. You know, that's just a real high percentage area. When you zoom out and you look at the big picture of that thing, great spot to start to throw your stuff for fish that are just coming off the beds, you know, summertime stuff out there. What else did I see here on this body of water? For me, I'm sticking to the pockets because I feel like that's where they can spawn. I would look at these points coming out. This is kind of a cool point right here. It offers a lot. If there's truly grass here, I've got a whole highway on the inside grass line right here. I've got a big tree out on the tip of that point. I've got, like, you have a lot going on right there. I could catch spawning fish on this ridge. I could catch fish, you know, eating bluegill that are spawning on top of that ridge. I've got, it's just, man, they live on that point year around. So I like that point right there a lot on this lake. Other than that, guys, I mean, I don't want to make it too complicated. You know, you got one other big creek right over here. You know, if the water's ever over this road, that's an obvious high percentage deal. And then this point right here, to me, is really high percentage. You know, it sticks out. It's got some big trees on it. It's got some rocks on it. It's got a high spot out here on the end of it. Shad will spawn on that thing in the mornings. It'd be a good topwater stuff. I just like that point right there. You can see these rocks are scattered right there. You got scattered timber. Neat spot, Carolina rig football jig, you know, a lot of timber on that thing to keep from cranking it, but if you could find an area in there to crank, you know, maybe something like this right here. You got another extended point, kind of off the beaten path. Looks like you got a road right down through there. You got some neat stuff in that lake. You got a couple submerged rocks, but I like that kind of stuff right there for June fishing, just those long extended points on a lake like this that I think the wind really beats up, causes a lot of erosion. I stick to those pockets off the sides where the wind doesn't affect it like it does. So, and I really like that spot down there at the dam with that pond going across it. So man, I hope these tips help you. I hope these areas where to start help you. Just appreciate you guys following along. Appreciate you hitting that like button. Helps the video out a bunch. But let's get to the winner of last month's May where to start. And as always, we randomly went down through there and we picked a subscriber and a winner. And this is a cool one right here. Blackbeard Gaming. Don't have any idea. But man, you left a great comment, buddy. Thank you for such detailed content. I added it to my fishing technique playlist. I'm new to competitive bass fishing. That's what it's about. We're trying to help people new, trying to help veterans. So there's a little bit for everybody on the channel. Blackbeard, send me an email through my website. Really simple, Edwin Evers Fishing. Send me that email. I will get you a certificate for a battery. It's going to be for an AGM blue top battery. You get a new battery, buddy. So thanks for leaving that comment. And that's all you guys have to do on this video. Leave me a comment. Leave me some lakes that you'd like me to break down for July. Will be our next video. And we'll randomly go down through there and we'll pick a winner and get that done for you guys. So appreciate all support, guys, and good fishing in the month of June.